getting live.
Cool.
All right. So, hi everyone. It's the 13th episode of our show. It's time for Jo&Rad. And today we'll be talking about, who do you want to be if you want to be successful? So, basically, covering things about, is it good to have influence of people or is it bad? How much should you be influenced? And quickly to go over the format of our show, it's typically a 20 minutes chat that me and Joanna do. And Joanna has a clock to make sure that we don't run over those 20 minutes. We generally don't. And it's super candid. It's nothing that we have scripted this. So it's really our true feelings that we try and bring into the conversation. And at the end of it, if you have any queries and if you think you have any suggestions, any viewpoints that you have on the topic, we would love to hear those as well.
Yeah. So looking forward to the comments, and I will start the clock.
Yes, I think so, unless you think you have anything to add into the introduction.
No, you're always straight to the point. I will just confuse people, so I will leave it to you.
All right, so let's get started.
Here we go, 20 minutes.
Cool.
Where do we start?
I think, Joanna, let's dive into what do you think is the good side of looking up to people and letting some influence rub off on you?
I think the most useful thing for me in looking up to some people was that when I was confused about what I want to do, or when I wasn't sure which direction I want to take in my career, it was just easy to pick a person I really look up to and I would love to become when I grow up, if you can say that, and kind of trace the steps they did in their career to know what should be my next step. I think this is the biggest advantage for me of following people that you would like to become one day.
So, who do you
What do you
truly
think?
look up to?
Yeah. Does it make sense?
It does. And I think I would just add that for me, looking up to people really opened a lot of ideas. Like, I had never thought that this is also a way to go into the design career, or this is how somebody is doing it. So for me, it was pretty closed. And this is something that I not really learned when I finished and got out of the design school. So for me, the most positive thing was it opened lots of ideas which I had never thought of.
And did you follow the kind of idols and people you were taught about in school?
No, to be honest, I think I immediately took up a job after my college, and during the 4 years that I was working, I almost, fell into the everyday routine, and I had almost forgotten about everything that was taught, and even I wasn't connected to design at the end of the day. After, it just became a very mundane task to do. So it was only when I started out on my own. In fact, even a long time I just spent doing whatever came my way, and there was no structure. I would say it's in the past few years that I really started looking up to people and going deep into it. How's it been for you?
No, it's very interesting because I think I can relate to it. That kind of when we were studying, I would be introduced to idols like, Stefan Segmeister, Jessica Walsh, and all the famous designers of that time, let's say. But when I graduated, like you, I feel like I was just like thrown out of the window, and like, just fly bird, without the wings or anything. And yes, I did not follow up with those people that I was kind of studying about at school, which makes me realize that maybe, the reason maybe why I didn't kind of follow up with their career and didn't keep following them is because the difference between their success and where I was huge. I mean, I could not sit at home and just watch books, from Jessica Walsh about her beautiful projects. Of course, it was a nice inspiration, but I needed work. I needed to make money to pay off my student loans. And I think this was a disconnect. So I still love these people. And actually, what's funny that I came back to these idols today.
Hmm.
Maybe I wasn't ready when I graduated. I don't know if it makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And maybe my perspective here would be, as you're talking, it also makes me realize that time, definitely, I wasn't looking up to these people who were in the same field because, as you mentioned, they felt l- like really far away. You wouldn't
Yes.
really think that we could even reach there, and it felt like a dreamy world. I was actually busy idolizing actors, and I was fascinated by the movie world. And that time, now if I look back, the thought process was, I just want to do something in that zone or do something fancy, and I was happy even if it was a little job. So it never occurred to me that I need to look up to somebody or improve and grow. So I think with that, I would also want to point out that I think generally we creatives would go out and look up to people probably when we're trying to have a little shift in our careers, maybe, or are we looking at growth, or when we start realizing it's time for us to you know go to the next level of our careers. Does that make sense?
I think so. It's funny because I didn't figure it out until now, why? Because when I graduated, and people would ask me, who's your favorite designer or whatever, I could not say a name and I felt embarrassed. And I don't know, I felt like it's not good that as a designer, I don't have this big idols. But I think the problem was I was not able to remember them because they didn't help me, right, in my career. They were not connected to me. And perhaps even if I reached out to them, it would be not accessible to me to kind of connect, right? So, and today I can name at least 10 or 15 artists that I'm strongly connected to, which makes me think that maybe I wasn't ready.
Right. So one thing that we're drawing out of this is that perhaps there's a right time when you have to let
Correct.
people
You're right.
influence you, and you don't have to stress about it. Maybe it'll naturally come. So that's one kind of takeaway in this thing that I can feel. And I would quickly want to jump to the next question. So you mentioned there have been at least 10 people whom you've looked up to. So what has been their impact? And do you want to share any examples of who do you look up to?
Yes, this goes, I guess, under the positive sides.
Yeah.
So I think that actually the first one was the business side of it, which was finding the future and Chris Daw. And
Hmm.
when I saw him, I was like, that's what I'm missing right now. That's what I need. So became totally obsessed with the future, with all the content. I said, when I grow up, I want to be Chris Daw, the female version. And I used to say it, and I was like, this is brilliant. I can just be, the gentle version of Chris, and that's like perfect career path, right? But obviously, as I grew, I kind of realized that this is not really that easy. And then all the idols from university came back. So I connected back to the design when I met you as well. And I realized, no, the business is important, but what makes me is also a creative side of it. So I went back to people like Jessica Walsh and Stefan Segmeister for inspiration, for getting out of my comfort zone. And when it comes to illustration, I loved following Andy J. Pizza. I love uh, uh, McLewis
Hmm.
because of their style. And I saw that, okay, their work is quite simple and iconic. And that's the way I would love to draw my illustrations too. So I kind of, the positive side of following them was that I saw how they draw the illustrations and I tried to match the gap between me and them.
Hmm.
So this is very useful thing, like when you don't know what to do, but like I want to be McLewis when I reach my career some goal. And I was able to see, okay, why her work is better than mine. Of course, it's still better, but like it was possible for me to catch up with the technical gaps that I had in my knowledge. Yeah, so perhaps that's it.
Yeah,
What
so
about
I would
you?
say that probably what you just mentioned, it essentially means that even when you look up to people, one positive side is it helps you realize the technical gaps and the quality gaps that you have in your work, and it'll help you push towards, a better zone. So that's absolutely true. And I think what I would want to just add is looking up to people kind of gave me more confidence because as you mentioned, yes, I have looked up to Christo and I've also followed the future really very much. But I think to me, I would say it wasn't really an influence, but yes, it did put me in that zone of this is how things should be done. So of course that's also been useful. But when I started looking up to people like Adam JK, and even the agency UNO's founder, I wouldn't say his name because it's super complicated and I know I'll mess it up, but in short he calls himself Haley. So they were really just being themselves. When I would see their presentations, any content that they would put out, I realized that they were being so honest and open about their journey, about where they are. I loved that. So that was kind of really eye opening for me. And it made me think that, hey, we can just have fun with what we do. And people are just enjoying what they're doing and they're so confident about it. So it's almost like, I was forcing myself to be in a certain way. I almost fell into that zone that I need to be professional and I need to really talk big things about design. But these people made me realize that you can just be yourself, you can just share your viewpoint, and you don't know how it'll connect with others, and you'll actually attract like-minded people. So for me, one positive side has been that it really gave me confidence just to be myself.
I think you're right. And I think that's the moment in your path when you have to know, okay, I followed this person, I learned the parts I need from that person, and now it's time to move on to the next stage, right?
Yeah.
So as we grow, we will see like different parts of people. And I think it's kind of should change all our life, no? I mean, I wanted to be everyone on the way. I think the recent was Brené Brown. I read her book and I was like, okay, I'm dropping everything. I'm not going to do design anymore. I'm going to take the university and I'm going to be a researcher because I'm really, really interested in leadership, empathy, and mental health. So I was like, what am I doing in design? I want to be Brené Brown. And then I realized, of course, and you learn, you reach that point when you study the person and their work, and then you're like, okay, obviously I just cannot be that person because we are so different, and it kind of makes us unique. So I think you need to find a way to say, okay, this is what I need from this person, and now I need to go back to who I am and discover what's important for you, and maybe combine all these influences. Still have 10 minutes, yay.
Wow. So I think with that, since you mentioned that, you wanted to be someone and then you realize you have to just go back to yourself, do you think we can flow into the negative side of it? Have you ever felt that it wasn't so nice to really get influenced by people?
Yes, this is a very good question. I think yes, it made me so depressed many times because, especially being on the business side and knowing that it works, right? We knew it works, we knew it makes money, but it just kind of wasn't me. And I tried through the tears, I made some money, but I couldn't make my clients that happy, right? Because I couldn't be myself. I'm not sure if that makes sense. So I think you are right. It can be negative when you try to be someone, even though you cannot just be exactly copy of somebody else, right? And if it doesn't feel right, if deep inside okay, I cannot draw colorful things, let's say, you can't. You try, you learn from your idol, but you just don't force it, right? You just listen to your instincts.
I think so. And I think it's been really, really similar for me, wherein I've been through that zone wherein I almost lost myself because I was looking up to so many people, as you mentioned. And maybe I think I confused my own self because one day I would try to be someone in the design space. The next day I would want to be into the illustration space. And I was like tossing all over. So I think it left me really confused. And what you're mentioning that, even with dealing with clients, or because you don't listen to your gut and you just get disconnected. So I felt that, like, let's say I read a book on sales, so I felt that, hey, I just have to be like this and these are the rules. And those were the worst sales calls that I've done. I've lost all those clients because I think I scared them, and they felt odd. I could sense it. So I think this is the downside. I would really say that even when you're looking up to people, you should never lose your confidence and belief in who you are. And if there's something weird about you, if there's something fun, quirky about you, which makes you unique, as you also mentioned, I think just hold on, just don't lose it.
I agree with you. This is so beautifully said. I think just be yourself, right? And if you are
I
not
think
sure who
so.
you are yet, because sometimes we don't know, right? It's like if I change one more time my bio, on LinkedIn and everywhere, I will be like freaking out. I mean, I think I change it weekly. But on the end, the job you do does not define you as a success or failure. It does not reflect, it's not all about it's not all that you are, right? You are so many more things. So, just change those bios until it feels right. It's nothing wrong with that. Some people, they just know exactly, I will be a doctor and it's a straight path and it's easier. But it's okay also to stumble and kind of grow with time, right? It's not easy to figure out what do you really want to do. And it evolves, right? Sometimes it's hard to
Absolutely.
decode.
It is. It is. And I'm on the same page. I don't know how many times I've changed my Insta bio. Like, I can't even tell you. I think I reached a point wherein I would do it every day. So,
Yes.
yes, as you mentioned, it's absolutely okay if you get confused. But only perspective that probably I would say I've learned from all this is that sometimes, you don't have to really get confused. I think that confusion happens when you start trying too hard and when you start looking up to too many people. So I would say there has to be, like, now I've reached a space wherein after a while I check myself and I just cut down. So even, let's say, if I have to make a content, even have to design something, I would take in influence, but then I cut down so that I can connect to myself.
Yes.
So I would say that one way probably to avoid this confusion and be too hard on yourself is don't care so much. Sometimes you have to also take few things easy.
Yeah, and I think you're right that sometimes just wait, right? Very
Yeah.
often we talk about it like, I wanted to start something and you tell me, no, you are not ready. Wait until it makes sense. And I'm like, no, come on, Radhika, just let me do it. I'm so annoyed with you. Why are you stopping me? She's stopping my growth. And like, I get super annoyed, right? But then I sit to that bio description again and I'm like, I'm not ready. You are right. I'm just not ready to beat that, right? And I have to be also honest with myself and give myself promotion when I feel ready to be that person, right? So I'm really glad actually that today I can say I'm quite confident. Yeah, and it just takes time, right? You will know, right? Well, you will know, like, I'm an
Yes.
illustrator. It feels weird. That means probably you are not an illustrator yet. So, like, trust your instinct and the gut feeling. If you feel like, okay, this is not really right, I'm just trying to show up for money, for better clients, then perhaps it's true. Unfortunately, it's not possible to fake it.
I think so. And one thing that I can probably add is, like, let's say sometimes when I would really look up to somebody and let's say they have a specific style. So I'm not good at drawing, unlike you. So I'm not like the best at drawing.
Me neither.
So, let's say if I would really look up to somebody, so I really got too hard on myself and I felt that, hey, I need to match that standard. So in that process, I somehow lost this, that maybe I don't need to actually follow that style. Maybe my style is, say, just writing or just being super, super simple.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back to the same thing for me, that of course you look up to somebody, you try and improve, but in the process, you shouldn't forget that maybe you end up, discovering something else which feels more real. So that doesn't mean that you have to force yourself to still get there. Maybe what you're feeling in your heart, maybe what your gut is telling you is actually the thing that really belongs to you.
Yes, you are right. And perhaps going like us back and forth, getting feedback from each other
Hmm.
was really helpful. And I even did it with more people around in the circle. I was like, I really want to do this, but what does it make me? Like, who am I now if I take care of this, right?
Hmm.
So I had very hard time. So I'm doing the same thing from the beginning, right? It's just the way I articulated was different and maybe not even right from the beginning. But it just took me time. I had to grow up to be able to articulate it and say what is it that I really do and who I look up to.
And I think maybe one thing that I would just want to tell people is that with all this conversation that we've had, let's say if you were watching this and you feel that you're just happy being the way you are, and you suddenly feel that, hey, I don't look up to anybody, I have no influence, and you start forcing and start searching, that's also not right. So at the end of the day, it's just about being happy with whatever you are and being confident and clear about it. So if you're already feeling that, if you're already feeling happy about it, then you know what, you don't need to bother about what anybody else is doing. Then you can just stick to whatever you're doing, and that's the best thing that you could do.
Yes, I think you said it excellent because it will show, right? So
Yes.
when I see the person bio, right, I can tell from a mile, like, okay, this is not that person, right? And
Yeah.
also the work and the way the person shows up doesn't reflect that. It's the same like, putting the company values somewhere, like just smashing them. And then you're like, what the heck, that person definitely is not that because it does not reflect, right? So I think no matter how much you try also to become someone, you just
Hmm.
can't, you can't lie. It shows.
It
It's
shows.
like trying, to be that cool kid in the group of people that you definitely don't belong to, right? And then it's
Seriously,
just awkward.
it's awkward, and it's awkward both ways. Like, let's say if you're somebody who's fun loving and you suddenly try to be too serious, that would also show. So when we say
Totally.
influence, it's not always about trying to improve. It could be both ways. It's just about, at the end of the day, being who you are, and that's what really works. I think at the end of the day, when you just be yourself, follow what your heart says, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not like anybody else is doing, that's what will actually work.
Yeah. Do you have any funny story when you tried to be someone and it turned out to be ridiculous because of, it was too fake on the end? Do you have
Yes,
any
I
story?
I think it's not really a story, but yes, there was a zone wherein, as you mentioned, probably when I was looking at the future and reading too much about the business things, I started looking up to people in that zone, everybody who was, really doing well like that. And I almost felt that, hey, I need to be super serious. I started dressing up in like my shirts and little formal, and I would tie up my hair and I would try and, oh my God,
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, so quickly.
Yes.
So after a while, I got bored of myself. I would
Yeah.
write something and I was like, what the hell? This is like, I cannot read it. I was literally bored. I almost felt I've changed myself. And then, like, forget it. The t shirt is coming back. I don't care about
You're
dressing up.
right.
And
You're right.
yeah,
I
so
think
I've been like that. How about you?
I think it's very similar. I don't know. Perhaps when I tried to be an illustrator, and I imagine this, cute warm sweaters and just making the photos of the space to be like, very creative. And I'm not really like that. I'm really somewhere between the business world and the
Hmm.
illustration. I'm not the traditional artist, unfortunately. Sorry everyone to disappoint you, but um, I really wanted to be that, but I just, I couldn't. Neither the business world. When I was working in the bank, I would keep coming in my sneakers. I just could not wear an elegant shoes. I couldn't, and my boss was furious because I had a suit, full suit, and the sneakers on. I just couldn't. It's like just some things can't fit, right?
Oh my God, that's so relatable. And I guess perhaps that's the reason why both of us are with each other, because I'm the same. I do not identify myself with completely on the business side nor completely on the artist side, because that's not me. So I'm also somewhere in the middle. And this is what I enjoy. And yes, after trying every day for months, trying to find this, I'm slowly beginning to get comfortable with and finding that sweet spot.
I think you're right. Maybe it's just scary, when we are not sure, like,
Yeah.
and we think, I need to have the answer today. Who am I?
Yeah.
Like, what
Yeah.
should I post on social media? And like, but the truth is, you just need to take time because it takes time to figure out who you are, right? Some people are lucky and not lucky, but they just know earlier, but sometimes it just takes time.
I think so. That's like so true. That sometimes it just takes time to figure out who you are.
Yeah. Cool. I think, do we
Okay.
have anyone watching or any comments?
Yes. So we have Rowena who joined us. Rowena, I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, but yes. So she says, happy to finally watch you both. Thank you for tuning in. And she also says that she really looks up to the Hootspa sisters. They're cool twins. I kind of like their design and art. But the number one is Christo, also David Tallis and Dot Lung for social media.
Cool. That's a good list. That's a very strong one. I really like all the people
Yes,
mentioned.
same here.
It's a good place, like if anyone is watching and not sure where to start in this zone of creativity, perhaps all of them are good to start, like to get a base from all these people and then, kind of build up from there and split on the directions which fits you the most.
I think so.
But thank
So
you, Rowena,
yeah,
for sharing.
yeah, Romana, thank you for sharing this. And anybody else who's watching us, do you guys have any questions or comments, or do you kind of probably, disagree to whatever we concluded?
Nothing?
Let's wait for a few seconds because we have people who've tuned in. Thank you, everybody who's watching us live. And yeah, we have more people joining in. So perhaps we can just give in a few seconds in case you want to add any comments, any questions, or do you want to just share that who do you guys look up to and why?
Yeah, it would be nice to get the list below in the
Yes,
comments as well.
yes. So, yeah, so Rampton has joined us. Thank you, Rampton, for joining in. So he says that, I mean, sometimes I don't think I'm the only one, but we pursue some skills or crafts or trends for the sole purpose of bringing us external values. I sometimes fall into this trap of not following things because I like them, but because I think it will be better for my resume. Joanna, do you want to take that one?
So do you mean you like start building something up based on someone's, do I understand? Can you translate me the question? Because I cannot read it. So like in a simpler.
Right. So, yes. So basically, I think what he says is that sometimes, he feels that he needs to follow something because it'll be good for his
Yes.
resume and because it should be done. And so, even though he's not passionate about it, he does something just because it has to be done. So, do you think it's good or bad to do that?
I think this is a great point, and I think we also have to be realistic of where we are in our careers, because I wouldn't everyone to take from this call that just go and do what you love and just go on the roller skates and just do that all day.
Hmm.
Because if you have some certain goals, career goals, sometimes yes, sometimes I mean we all have to do what has to be done to get to our career goals, right?
Hmm.
So the point is, I think, to do the things we don't necessarily always enjoy until the point you learned what you need to take from it.
Hmm.
So I talk a lot about doing the job you love, and many students write to me in private messages that they are so inspired, they want to quit the job. And I'm like, no, don't do that, please. Oh my God, this is not gonna be my fault. Oh my God, don't do that. So like, you have to know that until I was here having a creative agency and doing some creative workshops and all these things, I mean, it's been 7 years. And I remember when I graduated, I was also very, very angry. Like, I don't want to be here. I just want to be a creative director. And like, I was really angry, right? But I did not see, what it takes. And perhaps that's also a faulty in transparency in companies or in universities, even
Hmm.
to explain you that, what are the skills that it takes to become this or that, right? So that we could understand instead of being angry, and like changing the directions every 5 minutes, because yeah, it can be very demotivating when you do some job that you hate, right?
I think so. I think you really shared all valuable things out there. The only thing that I can think of adding to answer Rampton's question is that, let's say, because he's mentioning that he went into he's learning web development even though he's not passionate about it. So I would say that other than the financial things and other than realizing that realistically there have to be some goals that you need to follow, if you're just going by the flow and really forcing yourself and leaving behind something that you're passionate about. Like, let's say I know that you have a podcast, and for example, that you were really good with making content about podcasts. I'm just giving an example. So if you're trying to force yourself to leave it just because the world is saying that web development is the thing to do, then I think that's not the best thing. You will have to somewhere strike a balance between matching your financial and realistic goals and your passion also. Because as we discussed on the chat, if you really force something, it will someday show, and it might not be the nicest thing. So I think it's about finding a balance, if
You're
that
right.
makes sense.
I'm glad that you showed the other side of it as well. Uh, that's really important to know. Okay, what do I need
Hmm.
to gain the skills? Because we need some skills, right? And
Yeah.
we cannot all start as a managers and doing perfect jobs. Sometimes it works. I'm not saying it doesn't. But on the other hand, if you completely feel disconnected, it will also show in your work, right? You will not get jobs, you will not get hired, because every hiring manager can sense it if you are
Yes.
really passionate about it or not.
Absolutely. So it has to be a balance, and sometimes it might take a little while for you to figure out, where's that sweet spot.
Perhaps we can also link here the Ikigai video that we did.
I think so. We
I
can.
think this is a nice explanation on how to combine something you love and something that the world needs, and you can actually get paid for it. And I
Yeah.
think the idea is about, so you know where you want to be, this is where you are today, and you are doing things you don't like, but you are doing less and less and less until the gap is bridged completely and you do
Mhm.
fully the job you love. You know, even me and Radhika, we don't do 100% what we love still, I think. I
Yeah.
think we still have some of this gap to close, but we are so close
Mm.
now. So it's so exciting and so much better. So it's possible. It just takes time and you have to be patient and
Absolutely.
persistent.
I think so. And Rampton has just added that he says, and I guess even if you force yourself to learn it, you will compete with people who do the job for hobby and are passionate about it. And yes, he says that balancing is pretty tricky. So yes, Rampton, I think it's true that if somebody is super, super passionate about doing something, so, it does kind of reflect in their work. So that's why sometimes you cannot force in what you do. And yes, he says that it's pretty tricky to balance, but Rampton, unfortunately, the real thing is that is how it is. There is no clear one single answer or formula that we can give you. Sometimes it is a little tricky. So we can only just share that yes, you have to keep in mind the realistic things, but don't completely shut doors on what you're passionate about. So yes, just keep trying and you will find your balance. If possible, if you have the time and energy, try and run two things parallelly also, something that's helping you
Exactly.
financially. Keep going on with your passion projects, and you'll find your answers, is what I can say.
I think passion projects are the key. What you just said, it's wonderful because it shows what you really care about, and that's how people will find you eventually.
I think so. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Rampton, thanks for sharing your fears and your queries. And now we have comments from Bahini. She says, "Hey, Joanna and Radhika, nice to meet you guys. Thank you. Nice to meet you too. So, I'm the one story of my head who was constantly asking questions to Joanna. So, Joanna, I think you might know her. She says, really good to see you both. I wanted to ask about the portfolio. Can I use Behance as portfolio because I cannot afford a website?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think as long as it's digital and
Hmm.
it's easy for the employer or person who is supposed to buy from you to see, it doesn't matter what medium you pick. It has to be excellent, and that's it.
Yeah, I think Vahini, you can use like your Instagram to Facebook to LinkedIn. Just have any place where you can, put your stuff together. And if it's good, nobody cares if it's coming from Behance or Insta or Facebook. It really doesn't matter. You just have to be good.
Yes, and I think when I was hiring my first internship, what I was looking at, like I had like 200 people, sending me CVs. So you also have to know that, when you're looking for a job or even pitching to someone to sell your services, there is so many people. So you have to make it easy for me, right? So I got some
Mm.
links to websites which didn't work. And I'm not gonna give a second chance to it, because not that I don't care, but I have to go to 200 portfolios, and maybe I have just the capacity of one day for it. So good link that works, send directly, and the work should reflect what I'm looking for. So if we are an agency, right, and we are focusing on illustration, and if we receive a portfolio which is irrelevant, that's also an easy miss. So as long as your portfolio is relevant, the links are working, and the work is excellent, you're gonna get the project or the job.
Totally. Yeah. So, any other questions or thoughts?
I've got nothing useful. Perhaps just be yourself, just to say as a recap. On the end of the day, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. At the same time, if you feel like you are kind of getting lazy and not doing enough, it's also probably true. So, like, just trust your gut feeling, put that one goal on the table or somewhere, hang it high up, and just start bridging the gap to the job that you would like to get.
I think so. That's like a cool way to summarize it. And yeah, Viney says thank you so much. So thank you, Viney, for tuning in and asking your questions. Perhaps that might help somebody else also. So glad that you put it up. And okay, so any closing questions or comments, or else we'll probably wrap up our show. No, I
Yeah.
don't think
Now
so.
everybody go to fix portfolio Instagram bios and
Yeah, and
leave
probably just,
comment below.
I think
Don't,
so. You can
don't
share
forget
those
to leave
things.
the people, the names of the people that they look up to, and
Mm.
you can also share your bio, one sentence. I'm curious.
Yeah, and even if later you sleep over whatever you just heard, and if you still have any questions or concerns, if you're still having that feeling that hey, I'm still struggling between my passion and what I need to do, you can still leave your comments, and we will see what we can do to help you out.
Cool. Everyone, have a nice day. Stay creative. And we will see you next week. We have the show every week on Wednesday at the same time. So I hope to see you back.
Yeah, thank you so much for watching in, and just don't forget to be yourself.
Mhm.
All right, bye bye.